Welcome back to the channel, and today we are out in the nature trail behind my house, and we're going to take a look at the brand new Boker Trailmate. And I gotta say, this is my favorite Boker fixed blade that I've ever gotten, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second, but let's pan on down, take a look at this. All right, so this is the sheath it comes with. Pretty nice leather sheath. It takes a little while to break it in. This belt loop thing is very tight, but I'm sure once you don't want it to get loose on you anyway. I think about an inch wide belt is probably your best bet. And even though I would have rathered a Kydex sheath, like a taco style Kydex sheath, at least it's a nice sheath. But we're gonna address the elephant in the room really quick. And yes, it is almost identical to the Bradford Guardian 3. It's the same type of sheath completely. Now, I don't know how common this sheath is. Bradford's a US company. The designer of the Trailmate is Steve Kelly. You might know him from tie connectors. He distributes titanium hardware parts and stuff like that. Plus, he's a custom knife maker. So by no means do I think he ripped the design off. The design itself is pretty basic. I did reach out to both of these companies to see if they would speak on it. I have not gotten a message back yet, but by the time I'm editing this, if I have gotten some information on their thoughts on the designs, I will definitely add it in. And then you take the Bradford Guardian 3. Just imagine this wasn't the contoured scales. God, the mosquitoes are bad today. Not the best day to choose to go out in the woods. So they're almost identical in length. The Trailmate is longer than the Guardian 3 and also sells one like this with a false edge or swedge up top. So yes, I do get it. They are very similar. The price on the Boker is coming in at $98, and we're gonna try to find out if it's worth it or not. I may throw some of the specs up on the screen because I don't have them here with me out in the woods, but this one has a nice drop point blade. You got that nice false edge, top swedge, whatever you want to call it, up top. It has a nice satin finish, pretty robust tip because of the grind. Even though that swedge comes all the way to that tip, you still have a decent amount of meat behind it. So if you had to do some poking or prodding and stuff, you ought to be okay. You have some really nice fine cut aggressive jimping right there. Not uncomfortable aggressive, but it definitely does an excellent job of grabbing a hold of the thumb. My finger's not going anywhere. I do like jimping on my fixed blades. Not so much on my folders, but for fixed blades, yeah, because I'm usually using them a good bit harder. As you can see, you can get right up on that edge. You know, that's either something you like or something you don't like because of safety, but there's nothing stopping you right there. I can kind of sit back if I want to, or if I want to control right up to that edge, I can get right up to it, work my way down. So it just depends. I know like on the Bradford, the 3.2s now, this part comes all the way down, so you have somewhat of a guard right there. My medium-sized hands, I get a nice 4-finger grip. So the first reason why this is my favorite Boker fixed blade that I own is the fact that this one is in Nitro-V instead of the D2 they use all the time. Nitro-V is a stainless steel. It can take a ridiculously sharp edge, and it holds its edge for a reasonable amount of time. It's nice and tough. I like it a lot. It's very similar to AEBL 14C. Just an overall good steel, easy to sharpen, and takes a keen, sharp edge. Like I said earlier, you have a nice satin finish with a high flat grind that comes down to around 21 thousandths behind the edge. Would I have liked it thinner? Yeah. I mean, at least for my EDC fixed blades, but they made up for it by, on my particular knife, there's a 17 degree per side edge bevel. Most production knives that I get usually have either 22 to 24 degrees per side edge bevel, and they just don't cut all that good. Civivi's famous for doing that. A lot of them do it. But this one came with a 17 degrees per side edge bevel, so it still should perform pretty good. Let's find out. The knife came with a really good edge out of box, and I didn't know what size the edge bevel, I didn't know what the edge bevel was at whenever I first started. So I was pretty shocked on how well it felt, how well it was slicing. I was slicing nice and fast. And of course it's comfortable in this grip. I have gloves on and this is light duty stuff, but definitely so far so good. Now we're going to test the ergos, see how the edge wants to bite, and see how, how much pressure I can put in, see if there's anything that's poking or prodding me. And I'm just cleaning up the stick right now, but it wanted to bite fast, and I started slowly increasing more and more and more, and I had no hot spots. I felt really locked in. I felt like I could get a lot of power. Now if I did this for a really long period of time, it would probably start to fatigue my wrist and forearms, start cramping them up a little bit, just because it's got a thinner handle on it. But as far as being locked in and nothing poking me, it was a-okay. I tried different. I did hammer grip. I did a little saber grip. Hammer grip, I can get the most power, obviously, but the saber grip, I get more control. The edge felt really nice. So this is not really a knife that I would want to have to baton with, just because it's a small blade. But if you need to do some kindling for a fire, just wanted to show that you could definitely do it and that the steel could handle that. Nitro-V is a very tough steel. Look at that knot. I mean, it was so twisted and bowed. But this is probably the biggest pieces I would want to do. And nothing got loose on me. The scales remain really nice and tight. And there wasn't a whole lot of shock either. But, like, once again, this isn't what I would want to have. You can use that tip because it's nice and low. It's a little scalpel up there in the front. Those drag cuts are really easy, and being that you have that gentle belly, making these cuts on a flat cutting surface are very easy, and it's blasting through the material. That's one thing that is great about having a 17 to 18 degrees per side or thinner edge bevel, is that it slices so well. It's absolutely miserable sometimes whenever I get those 24 degrees per side edge bevels that are thick. I mean, that are not super sharp. They cut awful. But this one, performing really nice. And the edge feels like it's holding up really nicely. We'll see here. Yep. Check that out. That's a push cut. I mean, very minimal pressure. And it's nice and comfortable. This knife didn't give me any blisters like majority of the knives I test do. And we remain pretty much in that forward tip portion. Nitro-V is a good steel. I wish I knew what they rock weld it to. And I can tell you right now, I will be sharpening this up after. I might even drop the angle. I mean, I may drop it down to 16 degrees and see how I like it there. But it performed great with the factory edge, at least mine did. And we end up doing 105 cuts until I run out of the piece I cut. And it still felt good. We can test that edge out after, just to see if there's any nicks or anything from the batoning, and to see how that edge is after all this cutting. It's like I said earlier, it's pretty similar to 14C and AEBL. I like them all about the same. 14C is actually probably my favorite, but this is probably a close second with AEBL. All of them are good steels. They take a screaming sharp edge, and I couldn't be happier with the way this one performed. I'll see how that edge is after all the cutting. Feels pretty good. It's got maybe 2 minor hang-ups. Yeah, definitely not as sharp as it was when I first started, but I'd say that's acceptable. Sorry, I had to bring some of it back in here. There was a chopper overhead and you couldn't really hear what I was saying. But this one was a really comfortable knife to use. Of course, I would have liked the G10 to be a little bit thicker, but for doing some EDC task, I think it's going to be perfect for that. You have good texture on this Peel Plod G10. It is bolt-on construction, T6, unfortunately, right here, and then you have a flared lanyard tube. That's kind of an odd place to put a lanyard tube because your hand's going to be covering it. I don't know why they didn't either put something right here in the back or put it right here or nothing at all. But I have enough handle that I don't really need a lanyard on it. Fitment is perfect. No high spots anywhere. They got a chamfer going all the way around, so there's no sharp areas. Even after we did the batoning, the scales did not loosen up at all, so they're nice and solid. Now we're talking about the carry. Leather's not my favorite means to carry my EDC fixed blades. I don't mind it on my larger fixed blades, but I much prefer a minimal fold over taco style sheath so I can either clip it to my pocket or inside the waistband. That's just my preferred means. It's just going to depend on your preference. Sheath was very snug when I first got it because it wants to bottom out like that. Just pinch it a little bit and it holds it in there. It's definitely not going anywhere. It's a nice sheath. It's nice and thick. If you do pick one of these up, I would say about an inch, inch and a quarter belt is probably perfect for this. You definitely want to feed the belt through before you put the blade in there, like I said, because it is nice and tight, which isn't a bad thing. You want to keep it nice and snug to the belt. I carried a good bit on the belt. Haven't really decided how I want to carry this one, but for right now I have it in the front. The sheath was pretty tight. I don't know what size belt. I think this is like an inch, maybe inch and a quarter. It was very hard. I had to use a pair of pliers to pull it through, but I'm sure once it stretches out, just like the regular part of the sheath. And this way you really can't see it much. Might try it scout carry next, but it functions nice and it's starting to break in nice as well. Here's a shot of it. I didn't really think it was too cumbersome on the belt. Let's see what it weighs. Coming in with the sheath is at 6 ounces. On the belt feels a lot different than hooked to the pocket. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Reich Hornet and the Work Tough Gear Clapacci. It's a little bit shorter than the Hornet and it's a little bit larger than the Clapacci. Next we have the Artisan Cutlery Sea Snake and the Essie Azula. It's larger than both of these. Next we have the Off-Grid Knives Hoglet and the Vosteed Mink. It's a little bit longer than the Hoglet. It's about identical to the Vosteed Mink. Now for my Nitpicks complaints, there is no real guard, so it just depends on if you're okay with that or not. You're right up to that edge pretty much. It doesn't really bother me, you just got to be more careful. I wouldn't have minded a little bit thicker handle scales. It just would allow you to cut for a lot longer without starting to fatigue quicker. But that said, it was very comfortable with everything I did. And of course, it comes with a nice leather sheath, but I would have loved that taco style sheath. Would have been very, very nice. And I guess you have to mention how similar it looks to the Bradford Guardian. I definitely don't think Steve Kelly ripped off the design or anything. He's pretty respected, and I don't think he would do something like that. Maybe he helped Bradford. I don't know. Still have not gotten a response from either Bradford or Steve Kelly, so I can't really speak on the matter. Now, the price is, in my opinion, it is a little steep. Boker's pretty notorious for that. It's coming in at $98. The Vosteed Mink, also in Nitro-V, about the same length, coming in at $69. And also the Civivi Storm Ridge. It's a bigger knife, but also Nitro-V, coming in at $89. So in my opinion, I get it. It's a collaboration, so you know it's going to be a little bit more. But I think it would have been priced better at say around $80, maybe even $75. Would have been an excellent deal. But you know, at $98, I don't think it's super overpriced or anything. I just think it could have been priced better. You will have to make that decision whether you think it's worth it or not. Like I said earlier, it is my favorite Boker fixed blade that I've ever bought. It performed nicely. I love the size. I love how comfortable it is in hand. It's just that perfect size. Just like on the Bradford, I like the fact that you're getting a lot longer blade, less handle, but I can still get a nice 4-finger grip on it. So if none of the nitpicks I talked about bother you at all, then yes, I can recommend the knife. And that will do it for today. If you have any questions about anything in particular, feel free to ask me down below. I'll do my best to answer you. And I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.